Welcome to the Daily History Chronicle. Each day, we travel back to discover a pivotal moment that changed the world. These aren't just dates and facts. They're stories of courage, conflict, innovation, and consequence that still echo through our lives today. Are you ready to explore? Let's see what happened on this day in history.
This is the Daily History Chronicle, where we explore the moments that shaped our world and discover why they still matter today. I'm Richard Backus, publisher of University Teaching Edition, and every day I get to share a piece of history that I think you'll find as fascinating as I do. On February 28, 1986, at 11:21 p.m., Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme was shot in the back on a snow-covered Stockholm street. He'd just left a movie theater with his wife Lisbeth. No bodyguards, no security detail, just an ordinary couple walking home through their capital city. Within minutes, the leader of one of Europe's most peaceful nations was dead, killed by an assassin who vanished into the winter darkness. And here's what fascinates me about this moment. Palme died because he refused to live like a target. Sweden lost its innocence that night, not just because they lost their prime minister, but because the very openness that defined Swedish democracy became the vulnerability that killed him. Understanding what happened requires holding multiple truths at once. Palme's accessibility was both a profound democratic principle and a fatal security failure. His assassination was both a simple street crime and possibly a complex political murder. Sweden's investigation was both exhaustive and catastrophically bungled. Both things are true. Both things matter. Picture this. Downtown Stockholm, Friday night, February 28, 1986. Olof Palme, 59, walks along Sveavägen with his wife Lisbeth after seeing the Mozart Brothers at the Grand Cinema. It's nearly midnight. The street is busy, Stockholm's main avenue on a winter evening. They dismissed their security earlier that day. This was normal for Palme. He routinely rode the subway, walked to work, and lived in an ordinary apartment. In Sweden's egalitarian society, the prime minister wasn't supposed to be different from everyone else. They turned from narrow Tunnelgatan onto the broader Sveavägen. From a few yards behind them, a man fires 2 shots. The first bullet hits Palme in the back, tearing through his body. The second grazes Lisbeth's back. Palme collapses onto the snowy sidewalk, blood pooling around him. A taxi driver radios for help. 2 young women sitting in a nearby car rush over. A passing nurse attempts CPR, not realizing she's trying to save the Prime Minister's life. The gunman flees east on Tunnelgatan. By the time police arrive, he's gone. Palme is rushed to Sabbatsberg Hospital, where he's pronounced dead at 6 a.m. on March 1st. Sweden had just experienced its first political assassination since King Gustav III was murdered in 1792, 194 years earlier. Let me build the clock for you. Olof Palme wasn't just any politician. Born into Swedish aristocracy in 1927, his mother was a baroness. His family included lawyers and bankers. He somehow became one of the world's most outspoken socialist leaders. After studying at Kenyon College in Ohio, where he hitchhiked through the Jim Crow South and witnessed American racism firsthand, he returned to Sweden radicalized by what he'd seen. As Sweden's prime minister from 1969 to 1976, and again from 1982 until his death, Palme transformed Swedish neutrality from passive to active. He marched alongside the North Vietnamese ambassador against the Vietnam War in 1968, while still a cabinet minister. He compared Nixon's Christmas bombing of Hanoi to Nazi atrocities. He called Franco's Spanish regime goddamn murderers. He gave $100,000 raised by Swedish workers directly to Salvador Allende's daughter after Pinochet's coup. He was one of the world's most vocal opponents of South African apartheid. Just 1 week before his death, he'd given a keynote speech declaring, "Apartheid cannot be reformed, it has to be eliminated." Nixon called him that Swedish asshole. The United States never invited him to the White House after Vietnam, even when relations normalized. South African military intelligence documents from October 1985, 4 months before his murder, listed him as a target. Kurdish groups had motives. Right-wing Swedish police factions had motives. Arms dealers had motives. CIA analysts worried his third-way socialism was spreading across Western Europe. But here's where it gets complex. Despite being the prime minister, Palme refused to live behind security. This wasn't carelessness, it was ideology. Sweden's social democracy was built on the idea that leaders weren't separate from citizens. The prime minister rode the subway, walked to work, lived in a regular apartment in Stockholm's Old Town. That openness was the point. It was what made Swedish democracy different. The investigation that followed became one of the 20th century's greatest mysteries. Police failed to properly cordon off the crime scene. Onlookers trampled potential evidence. The murder weapon was never found, though 800 guns were tested over the next 34 years. Over 10,000 people were interviewed. More than 130 people confessed, all falsely. The case file contains 22,430 points of interest and involves 90,000 people, 40,000 of them named. 2 years after the murder, Christer Pettersson, a small-time criminal and drug addict with a previous manslaughter conviction, was convicted based on Lisbeth Palme's identification of him in a controversial lineup. 6 lay judges voted guilty, 2 professional judges voted innocent. He was sentenced to life. 3 months later, an appeals court unanimously overturned the conviction, insufficient evidence, and ordered him released immediately. Pettersson died in 2004, legally innocent. In June 2020, prosecutors finally closed the case. They named Stig Engström, a graphic designer who worked near the crime scene and was an early witness, as the killer. Engström had anti-Palme political views, financial troubles, alcohol problems, weapons training, and access to the type of gun used. He'd lied to police, contradicted other witnesses, and had unique information about the crime. There was just one problem. Engström had killed himself in 2000. No charges could be filed. The evidence was circumstantial. Prosecutors admitted it was too weak to ensure a conviction if he'd been alive. The official case is closed, but journalist Thomas Pettersson spent 12 years investigating before publishing his conclusion about Engström in 2018. His work convinced prosecutors. Yet many Swedish investigators, lawyers, and journalists reject the conclusion. The evidence remains circumstantial. Multiple other theories persist. The South African connection, Kurdish militants, right-wing police, arms-dealing networks. We're still living with the consequences of that February night. Sweden did lose its innocence. The nation that prided itself on openness and trust learned that those values can make you vulnerable. Swedish leaders now have security details. The casual accessibility Palme represented is gone. But something deeper was lost too. The belief that moral courage on the world stage doesn't carry deadly risks. The philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote that the sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil. Whether Palme was killed by a lone gunman with personal grievances or by agents of a government he'd opposed, the result is the same. A voice for peace and justice was silenced. and we'll probably never know for certain who pulled the trigger or why. Here's what troubles me about this. Palme lived his democratic principles to the end. That accessibility, walking home from a movie theater without bodyguards, was both noble and reckless. It was a statement about the kind of society Sweden aspired to be, but it also made him an easy target for anyone who wanted him dead. And the investigation's failure leaves us with unsatisfying possibilities rather than definitive answers. Maybe it was Stig Engström, a disappointed man with political grudges and personal demons. Maybe it was South African agents retaliating for his anti-apartheid activism. Maybe it was related to the PKK, arms dealing, or right-wing elements in Swedish security services. The 34-year investigation, one of history's largest criminal probes, didn't provide certainty. All three are true. Palme's principles were admirable, his security decisions were questionable, and his murder remains fundamentally unresolved. We admire his courage while recognizing its cost. We respect the exhaustive investigation while acknowledging its failures. We accept the official conclusion while understanding it's contested. This is the uncomfortable reality of unsolved mysteries. We have to live with ambiguity. The way I see this, Palme's assassination represents something larger than one man's death. It's about the price of moral courage in international politics. Palme didn't just speak out. He marched with North Vietnamese diplomats, funded liberation movements, and compared American bombing to Nazi crimes. He made powerful enemies. Whether one of them killed him or whether he was simply the random victim of a disturbed individual, the effect was to silence one of the Cold War's most independent voices. And there's the investigation itself, a monument to both persistence and failure. 34 years, 10,000 interviews. The suspect list reads like a Cold War thriller. Yet they never found the gun. Never got conclusive evidence. Closed the case by naming a dead man they couldn't have convicted if he'd been alive. It's both the most thorough investigation in Swedish history and a study in how murder investigations can fail despite enormous effort. I'm Richard Backus, and this is the Daily History Chronicle. Tomorrow, we'll explore another moment that shaped our world. Until then, consider this. When leaders choose accessibility over security, are they serving democracy or abandoning responsibility? When investigations drag on for decades without definitive answers, do we honor the victim by accepting an imperfect conclusion or by acknowledging the limits of what we can know? Because that's what Palme's assassination teaches us, not just about the cost of courage, but about how some questions resist every attempt at answers. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, then please tell a friend. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for more of our shared history.